Alex Answer here, July 4th, 2017. We've got a Independence Day theme here. Did actually 4 parts yesterday. This is the second video of today. I'm going to expand in this free flow without a script video on what I think higher consciousness looks like when it's coming from the females specifically. And we can see literally how we aren't victims, really. We're constantly creating our own reality on a physical level. The evidence, the proof is in the pudding. It's the relationships. It's the men that women prefer. Now, with technology, with YouTube, with the advent of ebooks and things of that nature, there is an acceleration in knowledge about human psychology that wasn't around years ago. And so, as a preface, men and women in general, many of our secrets, what makes us tick, what we're really like, it's now out of the box. Now, I think we need to explore more what our real spiritual side is, however. I think that's what's lacking in a lot of our lives as humanity becomes more conscious. It's less than flattering attributes, if you know what I mean. So that's a major revelation with regards to the book Everybody Lies. And I've said now multiple times, and we'll go a little deeper into the issue, the revelation that there's a higher than expected number of women that seek out a certain type of pornography that typically is associated with a male sociopath. And there's actually been, I think Chris Hedges wrote an article about this on Truth Out. So it's actually being discussed within our society, even by people that would not consider themselves fans of that type of content. People are concerned, especially when younger women and men are accessing it, and it's more perverted than whatever it was 50 years ago. So, it's no longer people just being aroused by nudity. It's like really bizarre, like um, violent stuff, including towards men. And there are people that have, for whatever reason, developed. There could be certain things that are within our human nature, but what is our higher human nature? Our human nature seems to be constantly socially engineered to some dark medieval type of S&M reality, which the ball and gag, see, it's a metaphor for our slavery to the system. Ball and gag. Don't speak your real mind as a system slaps that ass. Now, I am proposing to you, the women listening and the men listening, that we were born into these bodies. We call it a soul or a spirit. There's something powerful about what we really are beyond the body, but the body has certain programming in it or programs in it. It can be activated by technology. There are forces of darkness that understand how to manipulate human physiology and behavior. Humans, by and large, have arrogant consciousnesses. They, in general, think they are the master of their own destiny and universe. For a long time, it was believed that the Earth was the center of the universe. Now there's a movement saying that it's flat and that the sun isn't even real. And they claim to be the humans with this great knowledge to tell us that everything is fake. But what's beyond the fakeness, and what's beyond that, and what's beyond that, what's beyond that, what's beyond that? Just don't tell me it's all fake and everything is conspiracy theory. That's a black hole to nowhere. That's a highway to the hell of the mind. So whether it be the Babylonian deities, Enki, Enlil, others, Archon specifically, there's a certain psychology, obviously, sexuality within a certain amount of the men to be aggressive with their sexuality. There's a certain amount of the population, likewise, with the females to be submissive to that aggressive sexuality. More so to prefer the aggressive male, the survival mechanism, the man that goes out even in the modern day nightclub and starts fights with others. Certain tribal, instinctual buttons that are involved with sexuality and female arousal when some men act aggressive. Even if those females are purporting to be love and light with their crystals and their this and their that, it really comes down to real behavior, not the mask. There's the mask that humans hold up. And then there's the reality. And a lot of humans are pretty much from cradle to grave conditioned to cultivate a mask that they use to cover their real self. Now, I'm not interested in being popular. So, my real thoughts come to this YouTube channel, not a script. I'm not here to promote a politician. You don't see that type of behavior or spend all my time calling for one particular president, Donald Trump, or supposed opponent to Donald Trump. Hail, hooray for president. I don't waste my time with making this about politics. They're a part of the discussion. They're part of this control grid. They're part of the spiritual soul prison that we're in. They're leading people astray. They're leading people into their gang colors so they can get into the fight, fight, fight position as we watch things unfold on YouTube. Why is there a population, also predominantly white population, so obsessed with violence in the streets and so many women involved in this and also involved in pornography, sex, and violence? How interesting. Again, where are the women in the truth movement? I'm saying this also as a challenge. These videos will live on, and eventually the videos will be made by women. And because YouTube has this reach, I should be reaching people around the world. But it would take this message to be received by people to want to support it, contribute to it, share it, like it. And the question is that happening? Or have I dropped nearly completely off the map? It's the latter. And I'm not afraid to tell you that. Because I'm not here with the Alex Ansary Show brand. Dun, 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 dun. Come on down. Yeah, we're going to have some strippers today. Oh, don't worry. It's going to be YouTube safe. But, it's always recommended that I have just beautiful women in the background selling sexuality just like the rest of them while I do the news. Wouldn't it be fun if I just was an entertainer for you and your family, for you and your girlfriend and your horny boyfriend? Wouldn't that be just swell? But see, I'm not a brand. It would be wonderful to feature a beautiful woman, to speak truth before you. Today is not that day, but the lifetime's not over. Who knows where my travels will take me, but I do believe that I'm going to be spending most of my life, from what I can tell, from what I know, in this general part of America. And I have seen no evidence of consciousness in the female population regarding love, empathy. I mean, it's frightening. And just looking at some of the social media pages, it's just being born beautiful and being born of nature, but then given a smartphone and propaganda. Yeah, that doesn't protect just being around nature. Today's woman. I'm shocked at what people don't care about. I'm shocked more people don't care about the death and the murder and the genocide. I somehow incarnated and was born with a certain perception of women that was one in which I have perceived women as being more like you would think naturally, like adverse, like, no, we can't support this monstrous system. What, you're raping those women? Like, like women that would be outraged, especially with the rise of what's called feminism and women's rights within our own culture and the perception of that. Why am I not? I've been very confused this last decade as well as living in pain. But I understand where this human trafficking epidemic that's coming to the United States' future is coming from because the apathy exists there. I've spoken about this for 10 years. I think that there's things that I picked up on that could be useful to members of the female population, many of them, that people could literally avoid some of these problems that are coming to the human species by changing their ways, by becoming more aware, by learning self-defense, by strategically relocating, by picking better protectors and men, and understanding that their higher consciousness, not their monkey biology, that literally like gets wet when a man shows aggression and puts on military boots and grabs an M16 and kills 100 Afghans. And I'm thinking about where the sexuality and the Nazism comes into play together. And it makes me sick inside to feel like I am their enemy. To feel like I am their enemy, even if it's not in a literal sense, but to know that I am of the DNA, at least partially, of that which many of these unconscious US barbarians are working together in this family unit as they believe that they are defending our freedoms, as they literally put the nails in the coffin of the US and give China, Russia, and our future enemies, including North Korea and Iran, all the ammunition they need to build a case against the United States, but they will build a case against the American women. Rape is used as a weapon of war. Now going into my second decade of warning the American women of this culture and perhaps women of Europe, there's something evil about these governments. The governments that are controlling immigration, the governments that are controlling the wars. And when they send the United States into a bankruptcy and you have a certain percentage of those military families depending on a paycheck, what happens when those paychecks evaporate? Then they become the domestic terrorists when those veterans start fighting back against the US government once they realize they've been fucked. And when that happens, okay, we're going to talk about households being flagged and being put up on a radar. When the foreign troops are here, there are going to be certain people of interest that they're just going to fuck with. Okay, there's going to be certain bounties on the heads of certain women at some point. See, here we have this Independence Day where people are running around with their Chinese flags and they've been sexualizing our children in front of our very eyes. You would have thought they would have connected things with Donald Trump's role in the destruction of America by design and making whores out of its future daughters. With those girls coming out in that Trump support dance, looking like a bunch of strippers. They're freaking 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old. The oldest one is probably 9 or 10 years old, looking like strippers with a Donald Trump banner behind them. And they put that on national TV, and then you have like old grandmother types all there to support Trump, but they're looking at their little, granddaughter is doing that shaky, shaky, shaky. I did like a zoom up, type in Barack Obama, Donald Trump, unofficial campaign video on my channel, and you'll see it. And they're like, the face on one of these grandmothers was just, and it was worth a million words, 1,000 words, so to speak. So as I've mentioned in past videos, it's hard for me and feels like a punishment to witness a form of biology in the current human Homo sapien that I believe has had its sex drive artificially wired to maintain a strong population of Neanderthal like less conscious human beings that are on the warpath that will persecute members of their own society that want to promote higher knowledge and understanding. This is way beyond ethnicity. This is why you see the worship program, worship of football, worship of celebrities, worship of false gods and deities, just simply replacing Orthodox religion, but it's still religion, it's still worship, and there's still this sacrifice, superstition energy that is just pervading the room. It's the elephant in the room as they continue to sacrifice Afghans and Iraqis by the millions, mind you. Does someone out there think that they're sacrificing these innocent people to some sort of a deity, that which they draw power from? Because there are far too many people that have been killed and there is far too much silence. This is not a normal reality. There's nothing you can trust about a human being that will look you in the eye or something to that effect and tell you that this is a conscious, loving society and that our problems have already been worked out. How can you trust a person that would lie to you, to your face, in that manner? You can't. If you get on the internet, you start typing channeled messages. Um, a lot of us have been taught, see, this isn't attacking anyone, but we've been taught the sexism, that women are more intuitive. And I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm looking. Where are the women channeling what's happening now and telling the truth? Let's go back to 9/11 and discussing your deception. Can you show me? It looks like we have a lighting issue here. This should resolve itself here as I unplug this. Do this on the fly. You can only have so many things plugged in at once. So, shifting gears. Those born into female bodies incarnating beyond this matrix, what would it take? And then again, what behaviors lock someone into this frequency? I think we cover that fairly well. And it would literally take an upgrade in consciousness for a lot of women to see value in the sacred masculine, to explore their own sexuality in not a carnal way, but to not be of a mindset, oh no, I can't be turned on or pleasured or enjoy the company of because of XYZ, something in the mind. That's something that's been implanted in the mind. And the largest sexual organ is the brain. So if the brain is hijacked and it's polluted, and men that may have been considered attractive, maybe even very attractive 30 years ago, 20 years ago, right? 10 years ago, most women are going to break to social pressure and programming. So if certain men are demonized and bloodlines of that of the enemy, right, that is not DNA that those women would take a risk procreating with. Those that would are actually more powerful than those women that would allow the white supremacy of our culture to box them in, to tell them what man they can be with and what man they can't be with. See, that's medieval. It's just like the period in which women were called witches and they were burned at the stake. How is what some of the women are going through now in Europe and the places that are having less white babies, how is that different than the Middle Ages? See, there's some sort of a Middle Age demonic channeling taking place in this reality right now. And it's marked by, again, those women that will sleep with, marry with, and have children with men that are killing other men, women, and children in other countries that did nothing to us on 9/11. As far as I'm concerned, that's a great sin. As far as I'm concerned, that's going to lead to the trafficking of women within this nation, which I would like to warn people about. We talked about strategic relocation. We talked about karma. We talked about, I'll bring up right now, you don't want to be close to people that have a lot of demons and bad karma, people that have killed people that are literally drenched in. See, the problem is, it doesn't matter that we have a lot of churches and mosques. There's a lot of men and women of different ethnicities within America that don't believe a damn thing about karma. Their actions show it. That don't truly believe in a creator, but they love to worship these little g gods. They love to worship. They love their ritual. They love their mass. They love their tribalism. Who loves the real God? Who serves the real creator amongst us? Which women amongst you have a message today to forward me about what they're seeing regarding the future? Show me one. And I'm challenging you to challenge me in my narrative and show me what you're doing. We're going to continue to have these discussions into the 2020s. And the reports are going to increase. And it's going to break my heart when I hear about some of these cities being overtaken by human traffickers. Cities like Portland, 10 years now, to live an incarnation where I know I'm disliked because I'm warning people about a reality they believe is not coming, that a percentage will falsely believe that I would like to make it happen, whether it be World War III or the other shit in the fan scenarios. It doesn't matter who you are, what age, what time, what era. That which we do comes back to us. That which we support the construct that we're a part of. When we're giving auxiliary support in some way, shape, or form through affection, money, or guns or other, where we are supplying with energy and support the vampire, the killer, the barbarian. So there are many Americans that have tied themselves to the killing machine construct, the military family. death and destruction, the worship of football and false gods, because we're human and we're wired instinctually to act in a certain direction. And now with technology, technology is adding a new dark twist. That's what becomes frightening. Because with technology and massive fake news, with the help of Facebook and whatnot, they have the ability to brainwash many millions to billions of men and women in a single day. Things that used to take decades and hundreds of years can now be done in a single day in a single manufactured event like 9/11. Boom! And that woke me up. Seeing that eye of Sauron, that ultimate evil, and then looking around, where are the other women that also see this, where I was told that they had intuition, they were channeling things, and I was always exposed to all this ego stuff regarding intuition. Well, I know what my intuition told me, and I felt, and that's not something you can really explain when you come to an inner level or an inner vision. And then people tell you that you don't have vision and you don't have sight and that it wasn't a deception. And Afghans really did do it. But no, no, it was really a deception. We saw a police state follow and we saw millions dead. And we've read countless reports. And I've looked at our society going, where are those amongst the ego driven spiritual communities that have warned about this and also shown their support? So women could evolve out of this. All of us should step away from gender and sex based, nationality based supremacy. So, white man supremacy, white woman supremacy, black man supremacy, it really doesn't matter what it is. Supremacy in the Middle East, there are groups in the Middle East that are horrible to each other, which is so difficult for me to fathom that people that look pretty much the same, in my eyes, maybe a little bit different, slightly different tone, but there are subtle ethnic differences between some Iraqis. Afghanis actually have multiple ethnicities. Afghanistan is a artificial construct nation state, whether or not you knew that. Afghan is not a designation for a single ethnic group. There are even Chinese Afghans of Chinese descent in Afghanistan, and more so in the past when the Buddhist temples were made. Got to remember, before the Taliban, they were just Afghans fighting over territory and they left the Buddha statues. It wasn't until the CIA through ISI funded the Taliban that the Taliban blew up with Western money the Buddha statues. It's like I even prayed to just see a woman just randomly across the planet discussing these issues, like as a history professor. Okay, here's how they destabilized Afghanistan. Here's how they really took rights away from women and put them in the burqa when at one point they were going to school. It's like, where is the female who speaks of such things? But I do believe that there is maybe a Nina Ansari who is Iranian. And I believe that she has written about the plight of women in Iran and or other things. And I haven't read the book. There's a number of intellectuals that are out there that share my last name, but not my what could be called conspiratorial political views. I find it interesting that your society has a lot of stereotypes about Middle Eastern men being suppressive to women, because I guess I would consider myself to be both, yet my dialogue is absolutely about liberation for women. And your society is real big, as well as your women, not giving me credit for that, not acknowledging that Middle Eastern men have a stereotype that's not good, and that the bulk of my dialogue is about liberating women. I'm not seeing how women support me. I'm not seeing how they support my message. I'm not hearing how they're posting my content on other blogs or other Facebook pages. I'm not seeing the comments at all. As far as I can tell, right? I haven't done anything wrong. But the more I get into the truth, the more I'm like losing you and upsetting you, because I'm upsetting a deep seated program that exists within our friggin' human species, regardless of your color. I look at the lack of females from my father's family that see the role that I'm playing. And that hurts so much. That's like a voodoo dagger in the heart. to even know that Afghan women, Afghan Ansari women, just because I'm not a Muslim and just because I've spoken ill of my father, which is considered one of the greatest sins you can ever commit. Apparently, it's a greater sin than working with the actual armies that are exterminating Afghans, which is what my father is doing. My father is Darth Vader, playing the role that he is playing. Through the hatred of my father towards me, because I didn't come down and kiss the boot, so to speak, I've suffered a sense of alienation because of the propaganda that he spewed. And I've always tried to understand this evil within human spirit that can be a mercenary for $200,000 a year, however much, take the money, just like the Native Americans that help the white man find other tribes. That's very negative karma. And I want no part of that. And I want none of that rolling off to me. So I find it a little bit coincidental that the same year that my father began to lease out his 5 or 6 languages that he can speak along with his master's degree, that I started outside the box TV without even knowing what he was doing. But see, our relationship was already broken. My father, the psychopath, the father in which I've marveled for years. Really, I came out of your dick, and literally, you were that obsessed with having your child in your possession because I came out of your dick. And that's not limited to a Middle Eastern man. That you know, there's something very archetypal just about that father, angry father domination in most cultures. And I've certainly heard more stories about fathers ripping the skin off their back, so to speak. Then there's a Bill Cosby comedy bit about that, about his father, in which he did bits about threatening to use his belt on him and his brother when they were staying up late making noise, a belt that would rip the meat off their backs, as it was literally described to them. That's a sense of terrorism. I think back to one time, and I know I'm off topic, but being around 10 or 11 years old, riding my bike, leaving my father's place on 23rd and Clinton, and riding blocks away elsewhere in Portland, coming back hours later after my adventure, and then my father grabbing my ears, so to speak, and just shaking and just shaking and just shaking and hearing like the stretching, cracking sound, and just wondering like, are the ears that flexible? Can you really just do that with an ear? And then I found out later from someone that was very involved in violence, that's actually not very difficult to tear off an ear. If you know what you're doing and twist right, that's horrific. So how can female Ansari relatives condone the behavior of someone like my father? It's a programming that exists within all cultures regarding the alpha male and the dominator. It doesn't matter whether it's a Middle Eastern woman, a black woman, the majority of women today are in this programming. There probably are other reasons why some women are choosing to not date or be in deep relationships. I would say there's a certain percentage that do want their freedom, and they're working to get that freedom. And it's just a really complicated time to be alive because they've set us against each other. If either the male or female wants dignity in a world where their dignity is chomped down, and they have it set up for other men and women to attack them and put them into a box. Call them a feminist or a misogynist. Call them a name. Call them a name. Call them a name with an association without even going and getting to know them. But what I know is this, folks, and this isn't attacking anyone, but it's a hope for the world to change. Something would need to change within human sexuality with both men and women. I don't know what would bring that change. Energies from a solar cycle, probably more than likely, are things that are aligned with that. Major energy changes on the planet that change the way that the brain structure is shaped. The brain shape, the frontal lobes our exposure to heavy mind control technology. That would need to go away. That would need to go away. These dense population centers where all these different people are living under stress, we would have to evolve consciously to exist in those population centers, or something would almost need to happen to reduce the world's population, whether it be an act of nature or something else. I'm not saying I'm for people dying. I'm saying, how are people by themselves going to become more conscious on their own unless something happens from the sun that interrupts population growth by taking out the grid? Something to that effect. Otherwise, um, you can't show me how this is about politics or the Democrats or the Republicans or the US being on top or China and Russia taking things back. You look at the way women live in Russia, they live under plenty of domestic violence and abuse and a sick pornography culture as well to boot, just like the American culture. See, we don't know very much about the oppression in other countries like China and Russia. And so a lot of people are being propagandized that America has to come down to its sex slave role and the rest of the world needs to rise. So it's going to be a long, long time before women are free as they should be. And my measuring tape and scope for female freedom is large. It's larger than what you've ever given the Middle Eastern man credit for, but it's larger than what I'm seeing anybody in your society, our society here in the United States, speak of. But it's a great freedom, and it's a great spiritual freedom, and there's even a sexual freedom. And I think men and women should be able to explore the farthest thing from is sexual freedom. I don't know what people are talking about this late 60s thing. Sounds like people got real horny, and there was some great music, and a bunch of tribal members of like appearances, just like the Rainbow Family gathering, got together, and then machines came with technology and baby boomers and the suburbia and the growth, and then we woke up in a police state. Okay, was there real, genuine, free love that was long standing, that wasn't just part of a phase or a hormone-driven solar flare where people are just because things like solar flares can really drive humans into a procreative frenzy, and yet your science books doesn't even have room for a deeper analytical look at human procreative cycles, despite all your pornography, despite all the sex selling lies. Our species has never once thought to look at cycles of sexuality, manipulations of sexuality, the fact that we're in a petri dish, the fact they can use mind control to literally terraform new humans where they can almost control the genetic type of humans by affecting the consciousness of the female population and making some males perceived to be untouchables. We're still at a level of society that is not yet acknowledging the sick game that is being played by those of us that are living out this incarnation. But I will continue to speak because even if only a few females receive this, that's all that matters. If people can understand the trappings that keep them within this matrix, then they can also see the contrast to that barbarian nature that keeps us locked into this matrix type of fallen world. And they can evolve beyond those biological impulses and those programmed fears.